He was a man feared by the underworld, hunted by the law, and ultimately betrayed by his own kind. This is the twisted legacy of Dutch Schultz, the gangster who tried to outrun death, but couldn't escape his own demons. Arthur Flegenheimer never asked for mercy. Born in 1902 to a working-class Jewish family in the Bronx, Arthur's life was defined by struggle from the very beginning. His father abandoned the family early, leaving young Arthur to fend for himself in a world that was neither forgiving nor fair. As a teenager, he watched the streets teach harder lessons than any school ever could. Violence paid, fear earned respect, and money was the only god anyone prayed to. By age 17, he had dropped out of school, fallen in with street gangs, and found himself arrested for burglary. When he got out, he was different, colder, more calculated. He changed his name to Dutch Schultz, a name that would soon echo through the criminal corridors of New York like a warning shot. When Prohibition struck in 1920, Dutch saw his opening. While others hesitated, he hustled. He began working for speakeasies, delivering illegal alcohol, and collecting protection money with iron fists. Before long, he wasn't just a foot soldier. He was a commander building his own bootlegging empire in the Bronx. Dutch's rise was rapid, ruthless, and bloody. Rival gang members were found in ditches. Disloyal associates vanished without a trace. And Dutch? He only grew richer. By the early 1930s, he was making millions off illegal booze, running New York's underworld with a network of bribed cops, politicians, and hitmen. His reputation as a merciless enforcer was only matched by his business instincts. Dutch didn't just want control, he demanded it, but all empires shift. When the US repealed Prohibition in 1933, many gangsters faded into obscurity. Their black market fortunes vanished overnight. But not Dutch. He was too smart to be cornered. He saw the next big thing, and it wasn't booze. It was numbers. In Harlem, an underground lottery called the Numbers Racket was thriving. Poor families placed daily bets hoping to strike gold. Dutch moved in, fast and hard. He muscled out local operators, many of them black entrepreneurs who had built the racket to survive the same poverty he once knew. But Schultz didn't care. He took over using brute force, killing those who resisted and bribing enough lawmen to make it all seem invisible. At his peak, Dutch Schultz was raking in $20 million a year, an unimaginable sum in Depression-era America. He owned fancy nightclubs, traveled with armed guards, and lived like a king. But while Dutch had no problem silencing enemies, there was one man he couldn't shake: Thomas Dewey. Dewey was a young, relentless federal prosecutor, clean-cut, incorruptible, and laser-focused on bringing down organized crime. Dutch was one of his biggest targets. He built a case around tax evasion, just like prosecutors had done with Al Capone. Dutch laughed at first, but soon the walls began to close in. In 1935, Dutch stood trial. But ever the showman, he moved the case to a small rural town in upstate New York, where he bribed jurors, played the part of a kind-hearted businessman, and walked away acquitted. It was a shocking victory, but the victory came at a price. Dutch was no longer just a criminal. He was now a target of the law and of his own paranoia. He became obsessed with eliminating Dewey, convinced the prosecutor would come back harder than ever. And Dutch was right. But when he brought his idea to the Mafia Commission, the governing body of organized crime, he made a fatal error. Dutch wanted Dewey dead. But the commission feared that killing a federal prosecutor would bring too much heat. They told him no. Dutch refused to listen. He planned to go through with the hit anyway. And in doing so, he signed his own death warrant. On the night of October 23, 1935, Dutch sat down for dinner at the Palace Chop House in Newark, New Jersey. He was relaxed, even joking with friends. But what he didn't know was that 4 hitmen, hired by the commission, were already watching. At 10:15 p.m., they moved in, guns drawn, no hesitation. Bullets tore through Dutch's stomach. His bodyguards were shot where they sat. The blood on the tiled floor told the whole story. Dutch Schultz, the man who thought himself untouchable, was finally mortal. But Dutch didn't die right away. He lingered for nearly 24 hours in a hospital bed, slipping in and out of consciousness. Detectives circled him like vultures, trying to get confessions, secrets, anything. But what came out of Dutch's mouth was a rambling, dreamlike monologue. "Please, let me get up. Mother is the best bet, and don't let Satan draw you too fast." It was chilling, like a man haunted by the ghosts he'd created. He died in the early hours of October 24th. No grand confession, no revenge, no redemption. Dutch Schultz left behind a vast fortune, most of it unaccounted for. Legend says he hid millions in buried treasure before his death. To this day, treasure hunters still search for it in upstate New York, hoping to find the last remains of a gangster's dream. But more than money, Schultz left behind a lesson. He rose from nothing, clawed his way to power, and built an empire on fear. But in the end, it wasn't the police or even the government that destroyed him. It was his own ego, his need for control, his refusal to listen. Dutch Schultz didn't fall because he lost. He fell because he couldn't stop winning. And Dutch Schultz may be gone, but the echoes of his crimes still haunt American history. What do you think? Was he a genius strategist, or just another madman in a nice suit? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more true crime stories that reveal the dark side of ambition.